Dylan Dando back here with Angler Pros. Been working on a few fly tying videos for the site, trying to educate fellow fishermen who may be interested in learning to tie their own flies, or who already tie their own flies and are looking for some new patterns to tie. Starting off with a few of my favorite patterns. This one here is called the Rainbow Warrior. It's probably in my top 3 nymphs that I use every time I fish for trout. I'll definitely be carrying at least 1 or 2 of these in my box. It's a great attractor pattern. It's also great by itself. So you can see it here. I typically tie it between sizes 12 and 16. I've heard of people tying it in much smaller sizes, even up into the 22, 24 range. I don't tie flies that small. I don't use them ever, so I don't tie them. One thing I've learned over the years with fly tying, as I've kind of matured throughout my experience with it, is that in the beginning I was tying all kinds of different patterns that I thought looked cool and all that. It's all good to learn different amount of patterns, but as you kind of mature, you just find yourself tying those 10 or 12 patterns that you fish every year consistently. So I've really dialed back on what I'm tying each year, but I can assure you that the patterns that I'm going to be showing you in these videos are my go-tos for trout. I'm from Pennsylvania. These patterns are pretty versatile. I fished them in Pennsylvania. I fished them in even out in Colorado, and they've been effective in both places. So I would be willing to bet that trout all over the United States would be willing to take these flies. So we'll get into the Rainbow Warrior. I'm going to be tying a size 14 for you in this video. So we're going to get this finished one off the vise. Now, to start, you're going to want to thread a bead onto a hook. Again, I'm going to be tying a 14 in this video. You want to use a scud type or a nymph type hook for this fly. It looks really good if you can get these curved hooks on there. At the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about fly variation and that kind of things. There's not one set way to tie these patterns. You can adapt it and kind of add your own flair to these patterns, change them however you want, whatever's more effective for your home waters. I encourage you to get out there and try different things with these. But this is just a basic model, basic version that I typically tie. So again, size 14 hook. I have a silver or dark gray bead on for the head. Next thing I'm going to tie in is some lead-free wire. I hope you can see it when I'm holding it like that. It's thin. It is the 0.015 lead-free wire. Nymphs are really important. You got to get them where the fish are. I don't like to use split shot. You'll hear me say that in all my videos. I do, but I don't like to do it because I feel like you get an unnatural drift that way. So if you can weight your flies naturally within the pattern, I try to do that all the time. So I always add a little bit of weight. Typically like 6-8 turns is good enough for this, and then you can go from there. I fish a lot of tandem rigs when I fly fish, so the other fly will also be weighted, so that kind of helps you get both of them down depending on which is your top and which is your bottom. I'm going to be using red thread. That's standard for these patterns, so we're going to start right behind that lead wire, or lead-free wire I should say, and just tie your thread in, get your tie-in point. Fly proportion is very important to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tie back a little bit, just build a thread base behind that bead or the wire there, and then I'm going to build a ramp. So I want this ramp to be a good transition point between the thread and the wire, so that body, when I'm tying my materials onto it, looks natural with a natural taper. I don't want it to have any bumps or weird spots, because then it just looks goofy. I'm not a big person that likes to tie a bunch of pretty patterns. My flies aren't perfect. I'm not a professional by any means. I do this for fun and to catch fish. So ugly bugs catch fish too. So don't be afraid if your flies look a little ugly. Mine are all ugly, but they catch fish. That's the most important thing, is that you're out there catching fish and having fun. So what I've done is I built my little transition point there, and then I wrapped up to the back of the bead head there and just gave it a red underbody. So then I'm going to wrap back to right about where your barb would be, maybe a little past it on these curved hooks. And I'm going to cut my thread right there. Next material I'm going to use is a piece, or I'm going to actually use several strips of pheasant tail fiber for the tail of the fly. Typically 6 or 8, however many you pull off. I pulled some tips off there. You want to use 6 or 8, just a good amount for a tail. Whatever you guys typically tie in for a tail is fine. There's no magic number there. I do measure about the body length to make the fly proportional. I'm going to use a pinch wrap to tie those in. Then I'm going to wrap back a little bit onto them. And then I'm going to wrap forward, keeping the pheasant tail fibers. It just adds a little bit of bulk. And I'm going to wrap up to the back of the bead there and snip it off. Okay, then I'm going to just bind those down a little bit. Next material I'm going to be using is a strand of pearl Flashabou. I like the thicker stuff for this. This is going to be the body of the fly, so I'm going to tie that in right behind the bead point, just like that. And I'm going to wrap it the whole way back, and this doesn't have to be very pretty. Again, this is all going to get covered up. So you're just wrapping this material back down to where you tied your pheasant tail fiber in. So you want it to get to right there, and then you're going to wind your thread back up and make a nice red. Try and cover up as much of the materials as you can. You're going to make a nice red underbody, because this is going to kind of show through this pearl Flashabou. It's kind of a clear or iridescent look to it, so it's going to show through very nice and give your fly some nice color. Then you're going to all I'm going to do is just wind this forward, and you can see that this tends to split a little bit. I don't worry about that. Just keep wrapping. You're going to wrap the whole way up to your thread and just tie that off. And then what you're going to do is tie back. You're going to wrap that back, and if it splits like that, what I'll do then is just cut one of these off, because you only need one for the wing casing. So I'm going to cut one of those fibers off. I'll save that for later and use it. But now I have a strand right there that I'm going to use later on for my wing casing. I'm going to build a little underbody there, and I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way back on the fly for this part. The next material I'm going to tie in is a rainbow or like a pearl dubbing. It's got all different kinds of color. The main color is white, but it has blue, like a flashy green, a little bit of red and pink in there. Another type that you can use for this is a scud, like a pearl scud pattern dubbing. So all we're doing is grabbing a little bit of material there, and we're going to just attach this right to the thread. So I'm going to just kind of spin that on there. Be careful, do not spin too much, because you can snap your thread doing that. I've done that. It's very frustrating to lose a fly about halfway through. So then I'm just going to wrap my dubbing on there, wrap up to the back of the bead, pull my wing casing over, and I'm going to capture that right behind the bead. To really lock it in, you want to pull it backwards and get a couple of thread wraps in front of that as well. Okay, so then we're going to snip that off. To finish this fly off, you're going to tie in a hot spot right behind that bead. A hot spot's just a flashy color like a red or an orange or a pink that gives the fly a little bit of pop. You can do this with your whip finish. So I'm going to do 5 or 6 turn whip finish, and if I don't like the amount of thread that I have there, if I want more, I'll just do another whip finish. Again, it's not a very difficult pattern. You just got to kind of eyeball what you like. I like a bigger hot spot. That looks to be about good, so I'm going to use my whip finish, snip my tag end there. Then to finish the fly, I always use, I'm a fan of the Loon Outdoors UV fly finish. I use the thin stuff because it's easier to apply in my opinion. The thicker stuff's nice too, it's just personal preference. And all I'm going to do is hit that with the UV light to get that hardened. Takes about 15 or 20 seconds to get that to cure. And then you have your finished product, which is a great looking Rainbow Warrior fly. So like I said, there's a few different variations you can tie in. You can use different color for your thread or your hot spot if you'd like. Another thing that I've had a lot of success with, I don't think it makes a giant difference, but I do like Lively Legs products. For this fly, I'll use a hot pink fly leg that these guys make. It's a local company here in Pennsylvania. They're a great group of guys. They have a lot of fun on their videos. I like following them. So I like to support those type of companies. But the legs are cool. They make your flies look, they look exactly like a nymph when you pick up a rock. I didn't do that for this version. I wanted to keep this fairly simple. The legs aren't hard to tie in by any means, but you just have to proportion different. So I just wanted to keep this video simple for you guys. So I hope you like it. I hope you get out there and catch some fish. The most important thing is keep your pattern simple. Try not to get overwhelmed if you're learning, and just have fun doing it. Do not get frustrated with it. It's not life or death or anything like that. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be something that you enjoy doing. So try not to get frustrated. I know it's hard learning this type of stuff. And I hope this video helps you along the way.